Donald Trump is tone deaf and out of touch. And that's just one of the takeaways from the wipeout the Republican Party suffered on Tuesday night, election night in America. And I don't think it's going to be changing anytime soon. See, Donald Trump has a Joe Biden problem. And I don't mean that the way you may be thinking. Joe Biden was accused of being out of touch and or trying to sell to the American people that their economic fortunes were really better than they were when people were suffering at the gas pump and at the supermarket and to make ends meet. And instead, Joe Biden was looking at economic data and saying, you should be feeling better. But the American people were telling him, we're not. And that's one of the reasons that the Democrats lost. Now, Donald Trump has the same problem because he's completely tone deaf and indifferent to the suffering of Americans, the suffering of Americans that he's caused. And he's not doing anything about except step on the gas and step on the neck of the American people with these deranged economic policies. It's always the economy, stupid. And Donald Trump thinks that all of the golden Trump, all of the golden bathtubs and $300 million ballrooms and redoing the Lincoln bathroom in marble and stealing a $400 million plane and making billions of dollars for his family, because some of that may have worked to make him bulletproof, no pun intended, on the campaign trail. It doesn't work now. It doesn't work now. Because as Barack Obama once said, and others agreed, you may campaign in poetry, but you have to govern in prose. And this prose ain't working. Donald Trump is indifferent to the suffering of Americans because the split screen for him leading into this election on Tuesday, leading into the midterms, is terrible. On the one hand, you have millions of people that Donald Trump trolled on election day who were below the poverty line waiting for their SNAP food stamp benefits. And he told them, I'm not going to pay them. You know, like Ebenezer Scrooge stealing the turkey from Tiny Tim. This is a program that covers people who are disabled and elderly and children and babies and the poor. And Donald Trump is holding hostage their food stamps on election night, no less, with a final troll. And so the split screen is America suffering around the kitchen table with beef prices up 14%, coffee prices up 19%, food prices up over 5%, while Donald Trump, during a government shutdown where he's thrown hundreds of thousands of people onto the unemployment line and cut the fuel line for funding, government funding for the social safety net, he's building a $300 million ballroom, a gold-encased ballroom. He's redoing the Lincoln bathroom in marble. May I remind him, Abraham Lincoln was born in a log cabin and was one of our poorest presidents. He now has a marble and gold-clad bathroom. $200 million projected on golf trips this year alone. A Great Gatsby-themed Halloween party. Talk about out of touch. I read in an article, some author wrote, if AI could not have generated a more out of touch version of Donald Trump than he is right now. It's always the economy, stupid. And that's why there was a wipeout of the Republicans, not just in New Jersey, which has been reliably blue, but even Mikey Sherrill, the new governor there, who is a war veteran, who is a moderate Democrat, flipped a number of counties in my home state of New Jersey that had voted for Donald Trump and flipped them back to being blue. Same thing in Virginia with Abby Spanberger, a CIA intelligence officer born near my hometown in Red Bank, New Jersey, by the way. Father was a cop and then became a postal inspector. She flipped a number of states. A number of delegates flipped back blue from red in Virginia. Virginia had a Republican governor. She flipped that seat. Go to Mississippi. Mississippi, there's 2 more Democrats in the House of Delegates in Mississippi, breaking a stranglehold there. Because at least 40, based on exit polling, at least 40% of the people that left the polls were voting against Donald Trump. See, Donald Trump says the reason we didn't win on Tuesday night, I'm waiting for it, is the Democrat shutdown and I wasn't on the ballot. You were on the ballot. You don't get it. 40 to 50% of the people that voted against Donald Trump in voting against the R person that was running. So Pennsylvania, all the Democrat Supreme Court justices are retained. And then what we've watched, and it's a good conversation to have, is a conversation that the Democratic Party is having with the American people about their brand. And we're a big tent, and it spans from the Democratic socialists like Bernie, AOC, and Mamdani in New York, who won election, to the moderates, the moderate wing of the party, like Mikey Sherrill and Spanberger. They were jokingly referred to as the Mod Squad when they were in the House. And I don't know where it's going to land. I don't know what combination of ticket we're going to have for the 2028 election, but it's a good, healthy conversation to have about how to win. So we had a Democratic Socialist win in New York. We had two moderates win in Virginia and New Jersey for the Democrats. All a rejection of everything about Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump knows all of this because he got all crazy with his social media postings right after the election. And you know you're in trouble when you start blaming the shutdown. May I remind Donald Trump that this is a shutdown entering its second month where you control all three branches of government. At least, I'm sorry, that included the Supreme Court. You do that too, by the way. Both houses, both chambers of the Senate and the House, both chambers of Congress, and the executive branch. You got it all. And you got the Supreme Court. And yet, a shutdown. Here's what he writes in third person. Trump wasn't on the ballot and shut down were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight. I don't think he's getting the message that this is about an affordability crisis. I mean, one of the reasons that Mamdani won is not necessarily because he's a Democratic socialist, although there's a fair amount of Bernie-crats that are still out there looking for their candidate and think they have found it with this young mayoral candidate, mayoral winner. But he laser focused on the kitchen table and kitchen table politics for people and affordability. Because while Donald Trump panders to the wealthy and self-aggrandizes and brings in billions of dollars for himself and his family, the rest of America is suffering under Trumponomics as the Supreme Court decides whether to rip the rug out from under Donald Trump and take away his signature tariffs, which would be one of the best things that ever happened to Trump would be if he lost his tariffs. And instead, they're laughing about it. They're laughing about it in the White House because I listened to the 2.5 hour hearing and I think he's got a very slim chance of keeping the tariffs in place. I could be wrong, but they're laughing about the suffering of America because tariffs are taxes that have been passed through to the American consumer. Go look at the supermarket. Look how pathetic fruits and vegetables are right now because nobody's picking them in America and we've got tariffs with Mexico, among other reasons. And yet Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, comes on with his grinning crocodile grin. I think we're going to win. I don't think so. And I'll leave it at that. Let's play the clip.
In all seriousness, this case matters, I believe, for more than any other reason, not only economically, national security. How do you think it went today?
Oh, this is the Super Bowl. This was the Super Bowl of trade, right? Trade, and this was it. The only thing missing was walk-on and walk-off music and a halftime show. I mean, this was it. And there were fireworks all the time. But think of some of these questions, like Justice Kavanaugh says, imagine a meeting in the Oval Office with the president where, and this was his cross-examination of their lawyer, and he says, you've said he could embargo, he could cut off trade with any country, and their lawyer said, I agree. He goes, imagine telling the president in the Oval Office, sir, you can blow up trade with this country. And he goes, that seems too much. Can I put a tariff on him and do a little less? And they say, no, sir, you can't. And Justice Kavanaugh says, that seems like a very odd donut to me. I mean, how could you let that happen? It just didn't make sense. The justices were on the president's side. You're hearing it here from me. President Trump is going to win this case.
Let me just turn briefly to maps. one of the things that came out of the election night is the big win for Gavin Newsom for the Democratic Party. Gavin Newsom banked a lot of his political capital on winning Prop 50 to redo the maps in California to counterbalance at least Texas and pick up 5 Democratic votes. And he won overwhelmingly, 64%. They should have called it Prop 64 because that's the percentage of the people that voted to redo the maps. Now that's +5. Let's just do a quick go around. I mean, I don't have my whiteboard, but let's just do a quick go around because with Donald Trump knowing that he is in trouble electorally, he wants to try, especially at the midterms, he wants to try to change the board, tilt the board in his favor, change the rules and change the amount of Republican seats that will be handed to him at the midterms and in 2028. Right now, the Republicans have a slim lead of just 5 seats, 219 to 214. That will change when finally Representative Grijalva is sworn in. Then we'll be down to 218 to 215, right? We're down to 3 seats. Now, Prop 50 will give California 5 more. That'll counterbalances Texas 5 more Republican votes. Let's call that an even. Florida, under DeSantis, is going to try to add 3 to 4 Republican votes, but Maryland is going to try to add 1 more Democratic vote. In Indiana, even though Trump is trying with his people to gain 1 or 2 more seats for the Republicans, it doesn't appear that they have the votes in that House. In North Carolina, it looks like they have the votes to add 1 more Democratic seats. In Missouri, the same thing. In Virginia, with a big win with Spanberger, who had long coattails, looks like we could pick up 2 to 3 seats in Virginia for the Democrats. In Utah, of all places, could be 2 more seats for the Democrats. An attempt to bring 2 more seats for Republicans in Kansas has stalled. Now, if you put all that into the mix, it's about I would say, +2, +3 for the Democrats. However, if the Supreme Court overturns Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act based on a case from last month in Louisiana, there's going to be a lot more Republicans redoing their maps, a lot more Republican states redoing their maps. Could be a +10 event for Republicans, which would mean probably when you're done with all of this, 5, 6, 7, 8 vote maps in New York, 9, 10. Yeah, it could be still a +5 or 6 Republican advantage going in. Not insurmountable, but points on the board before the game even starts. But again, I wanted to kind of pull this all together. I didn't have an opportunity to speak to you on election night. I wanted to speak to you here on Legal AF about the wipeout for the Republicans and get down to the micro data. The Latino vote killed the Republican Party, as it should, given its immigration policies. I haven't even talked about immigration. I'll do that on another hot take. Women vote killed the Republican Party as well, and independents have abandoned Donald Trump. This was our first test run, our first dress rehearsal before the midterms. Not the last. There'll be some special elections here and there. There'll be another election night coming up, but then we roll right into next, it's already here, a year from today or so. Midterms, everybody in the House up for grabs and half the Senate up for grabs. And Trump is on the ballot, and we need to remind him of that every day in every way. Thanks for being here on Legal AF, and thank you for growing this YouTube channel. We're already at about 915,000, well on our way to 1 million. We might hit 1 million by the middle of December with your help. And I really do appreciate that. The bigger we are, the more street credibility we have, the more people we can bring on that you'll enjoy. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.